Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. I'm your host for today, Fionn Malloy. I'm joined, as always, by Jake Woolhead. Unfortunately, Daragh can't make it this week.
Wait, Fionn, wait. Who's this?
Oh, he's here.
He did make it. He made
it.
No, go away there. Go away. We don't need you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Daragh will not be playing a speaking role, shall we say, in today's episode. But me and Jake can handle that. We have a lot of off-season news to talk about. Mini camps have started. So we have a lot to talk about. Some giant stuff coming up as well that I get to talk to Jake about. So I'm looking forward to that. Before we dive into it, obviously we don't have a witty Daragh intro today. I'm not so good at them, so I'm going to stay away from that and leave it for him. Before we do get started, though, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We are, of course, available on Twitter and Facebook and Twitch. And what else are we on? Instagram. At Under Center Pod on all of that good stuff. If you prefer the audio version of this podcast, you can, of course, find it on all good podcast networks. Just search Under Center Pod.
If you're lucky, you might find us in your dreams.
If you're really, really lucky. If you're unlucky, it'll only be Jake. If you're really lucky, all three of us will show up.
That's a nightmare, I can assure you.
Speaking of nightmares, we're going to jump right in. If you guys were listening to us last week, we mentioned that we were in a fantasy league with a whole lot of other podcasters on the NFL. We'll keep you guys updated as to how we're going once that kicks off during the season. Our big draftee at quarterback was Carson Wentz, and unfortunately, this week it has come out that he is out, I believe, for between 5 and 12 weeks, is it? Jake?
That's pretty rough. It is 5 to 12 weeks. So
we're talking about, at best, he's going to be back week 1. At worst, he's going to be back week 7, I believe.
And Fionn, can you answer me who pushed for Carson Wentz in the fantasy draft?
Yeah, it might have been me. It might have been me. I mean, unfortunately, we played super flex draft, so a lot of the real top quarterbacks went before we had a pick. So, look, don't come at me in the comments saying, why would you pick Carson Wentz over anybody else? You guys didn't see our draft board. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a big deal. It's probably a bigger deal, though, Jake, for the actual team he plays for. That is, of course, Indianapolis Colts this season. It's his first season. How big of an impact is it going to be to miss pretty much the entire of minicamp, and then of course probably the first couple of weeks of the season as well?
Yeah, man, that's got to be really rough for the Colts. We always said with Carson Wentz it was kind of going to change a lot of like how they were going to do. What obviously he's a good player. We know he can be a good player, and he hasn't obviously performed that way with the Eagles, but this was like a new chance, a new beginning with him. It's quite a good supporting cast around him. So geez, this is a big hit for a team that probably could have went to the playoffs. I had a decent chance to get there now.
Yeah, I think for me, there's two things. So obviously, on the plus side, at least he's playing for Frank Reich. He has experience playing with him when Reich was in the Eagles team. And of course, now playing with him as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. So I think that's good. At least he has some experience in the kind of system that he likes to play. But for me, the huge worry is that it's come out that this is related to a previous injury that he had, which for me is extremely worrying in terms of his long-term stability and health at the quarterback position, especially when it's happening in the likes of minicamp. He's not coming under big contact, big pressure. They'll have rules, 3-yard, 5-yard rules about contact on quarterback. So it's really worrying. Obviously, we don't have any clips, but it would be most likely that came under no contact. So I think that's really worrying for the Colts.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you've seen the report there as well that the doctors were saying that it could have come from as far back as high school for him. And like, that's a crazy injury to be carrying that long from.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he could have played through. I think I've seen some reports that there's a possibility, but as we know, Carson can use his legs. So that would obviously have hampered that. And then there's obviously, now, what I mentioned to Fionn earlier was Quentin Nelson as well. Same injury. How mad is that? 5 to 12 weeks.
Apparently his is there since birth. He has had that since he was born, that whatever the issue is, we obviously haven't got a whole lot of detail on it. The teams won't release that. They have announced they've both gone for surgery this week, so they'll follow the same timeline. But that's a massive blow to whoever ends up filling Carson Wentz's seat or position.
funny enough that you brought that up. Did you look at the Colts depth chart at quarterback?
I didn't even dare to look.
It ain't pretty. It is a barren wasteland. You know the John Travolta gif where he walks in and he's that's exactly what it is. Let me list off the quarterbacks.
Go for it.
Okay, so Jacob Eason, we know they drafted him. I think it was this year. Then
he was out of Washington, right? Oh, okay, yeah, brilliant. Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, and then as a friend of mine likes to call, Brett Favre Hundley, which clearly isn't like a real thing for him.
No, absolutely not.
That is the Colts quarterback room. I'm really writing off 12 weeks of the Colts here unless Carson Wentz can come back. And with Nelson.
It could be very interesting as well. I've heard recently in the offseason that players obviously, of course, hate getting injured, but what makes it worse is when the teams release these timelines, and it means that the players feel like they have to stick to this timeline. And what almost makes it worse is two players means if one guy comes back on 5 weeks and the next guy comes back in 12 weeks, everyone's going to be asking the question, well, is he just not as tough? Is he not going to play through the pain? What's going on here? And that can make things very tricky for players.
Especially with an O-lineman at the quality of Quentin Nelson as well. Losing him is going to be a huge drop-off of that line.
And that has a ripple effect everywhere. Obviously, the backup is going to need as much protection, but the running backs as well. That's a pulling guard. He's known for his pancake blocks in the run game. That's going to really impact the team completely on offense, I think.
Yeah, sometimes you have a veteran quarterback, you can say maybe they can scheme around a broken O-line, but having that wasteland of a quarterback room is certainly not going to help them.
Yeah, we'll move on now. And one of the big ongoing stories so far at the start of the training camp is, of course, Xavier Howard and his declaration that he wants to move on from the Dolphins camp. Now, he has shown up to mini camps, I read today, so he has left that door open. He is not going to face any fines for holding out or anything like that. So that's quite an interesting move on his part, I have to say. And for me, Jake, I don't know about you, but for me, my money's going to lean on him staying at the Dolphins. How do you see this falling out? And if you do see him moving on, what do you think are the top targets?
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like the most likely outcome is he is just going to get a restructure of his contract. And if not, we'll just play through on what his current contract is. Now, you're talking about 2020 All-Pro. I think he got his contract was $72 million for 4 years. But the kick of it is, it was only $29 million was guaranteed, and a player of Xavier's caliber is like, that's underpaying a lad like that. So I can understand his arguments and wanting to be paid more. He certainly deserves to be paid more. I think I seen today the Dolphins are on the paying cornerbacks, one of the highest amounts of any team that's currently paying cornerbacks. So that's something to kind of watch out for. Obviously, you can't put too much of your money into one position group because that we just know that's just not going to work. In terms of like teams that maybe we can see him going to, if we're playing the hypothetical game, I can see teams like you'd imagine he would like to go to a contender. Obviously, I mean, who doesn't? But having that, you could probably swallow the paycheck if you're going to win a Super Bowl in a couple of years. I'd imagine makes it a little bit easier. So for terms like that, I'm looking at research here. I have the Cards. Cards have got a pretty decent defense. They're kind of on that cusp where a solid defense and a good performance of Kyler Murray will certainly get them to the playoffs. So that's a team that I could see. I don't know whether they'd give up the money and give up the assets to acquire him, but certainly a team to look out for. And then one that I just thought was kind of an interesting one was the Jets. They have a lot of money, as we know the Jets do. They certainly have a lot of draft capital, and they're in need of cornerbacks. So there's a team that I think could be interested in them. They also have Zach Wilson now, so maybe they think things are going to start turning around if they can get their defense sorted out.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one though, isn't it? It's quite similar to, I'd say, the Texans situation where, yes, they've agreed that you can seek a trade, but at the same time, they haven't said we're going to ask for a reasonable offer. They can outprice him out of the market nearly, especially given he's under contract. I reckon they probably will. I agree with you. I think they'll probably restructure his deal, and mostly because many of the teams that could pay him, I think, and knowing Xavier Howard and the quality that he has, any team that already has a top tier corner, I think is going to stay away just because of like you said, the price you have to pay to have two of those guys on your roster. So, and I think what removes the Jets is, why would you play for the Jets if you're already playing for the Dolphins? It's not a step up. You're not about to win even a division, never mind
I'll
it.
tell you why. Because if he can get a bag, he'll go to any team.
That's very true. That's very true. And that's why I'm guessing that the bag will come from the Dolphins. They have, as far as I know, not no money to spend. So they do have a little bit of money to spend. They can jig things around. We've all seen how the contracts went down this season in terms of offset years and guaranteed money here and all this other stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me.
What would you value a Xavier Howard at?
What's he on at the moment?
I mean, it's a $4.72 million contract with 29 guaranteed, but more so, what would you trade for him? What would you give up for him?
Oh, what would I give up from? I don't know. I think I could give up a first round for Xavier Howard. I don't know if I give up much more than that. I'm just thinking he has proven it, and there's not many corners that are on that tier out there at the moment, especially ones you can actually poach from a team that they're on. So yeah, I think he's worth a first rounder, especially if you're on a more settled team where you don't need to rebuild any particular area of your offense or your defense of your team in general. So yeah, I'd give up probably a first rounder to try and get him.
Yeah, I would have thought a first rounder, maybe a third rounder or something like that. That might do it just to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit to get him on your side.
What age is he, Jake? I should have that in front of me, but I don't.
I'm not too sure. I can find out now though. He's quite young though, is he not?
Well, if he's young, I'd be certainly getting him for at least 80 million, probably 3-4 more years as well.
He is. Oh, he's not that young. He's 28. I mean, still
28. Still okay, good. I can give him a 4-year contract at 28. Yeah. Give him 80. I don't know what the top corners are getting. I have to admit, contracts is not my strongest area of expertise, but yeah, I could see them getting 80 over 4 with probably half that guaranteed, maybe.
Yeah, probably something like that. He might
incredible
be with that this day. I mean,
watch his contract. Watch his contract end up absolutely nowhere near what I just hypothesized.
Highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Upcoming Patrick Mahomes deal for a quarterback now.
half a billion for 10 years at 28. That will be a whopper deal.
Yeah, it would be a good deal.
Yeah, I tell you who's not getting a good deal though, and that's Kelvin Benjamin. He's not getting no money. He, if you didn't hear, guys, got released by the Giants at the very start of minicamp. Allegedly, there was all sorts of problems. He was upset about how the coaching staff was cursing at him. They alleged that they caught him stealing from the canteen, taking buns home in his pocket to feed his family because, of course, he is broke. He has never played in the NFL. He has had minimum contracts everywhere he goes. So, yeah, what did you make of that? First of all, maybe what did you think of the acquisition of Kelvin Benjamin in the first place?
Do you know what? Like, I mean, it's camp. You got 93 guys. Like, I'll allow signing somebody for whatever is a vet min. I suppose it would be for Kelvin Benjamin. Just to get a camp auto. We know he was at least a first round pick. We know he had some talent. Obviously, he hasn't panned out. I was okay with it. I mean, I'm okay with taking flyers in camp. Like, it's not like you're signing them to be your starting tight end converted from a wide receiver. So I'm absolutely okay with it. Now, I don't know if you know too much about this story. I just love the whole story. Firstly, we seen the picture of him walking off and Dave Gettleman chasing him, and then all the jokes about Kelvin Benjamin stealing all the food started. But what actually happened was he came in at 265 pounds, and Joe Judge, and I'm sure some of the other staff said, we need you to drop it to 251 pounds if you want to stay on the team. And then, so what happens when he comes to camp? He was 268. So not only did he not lose any weight, he gained 3 pounds, okay? And I don't know, right? I didn't notice up until the Kelvin Benjamin cut, okay? Players can be fined from their team for being over the team weight that they specify.
Absolutely, yeah. For those who don't know, it is not uncommon for players of all positions, not just ones who have struggled with their weight, of all positions to have off-season weight targets for re-entry into minicamp and OTAs as well. And some of the teams are okay with that, but yeah, it's very common for also to be a fine. I've heard people, I know Pat McAfee talks about it on his show. He's had people, I believe it was like $1,000 per pound over your target weight.
I thought the max was 700 per pound, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay, well,
I did. There's a Giants beat reporter, Dan Duggan. He's excellent, but he was tweeting that Kelvin Benjamin may have done some maths in his head because his fine for being overweight was amounting to $12,000, and players aren't paid their full salary in training camp. So what he would have came out with at the end of training camp, had he been cut at the end of it, was $14,000. So you got to take your 12 grand off of that because you're overweight. But now he gets 12 grand up front because like it's just so crazy. I just don't know.
I see a little strategic maneuver. He, of course, is not the only man to have a weight problem. We've had the same thing with Eddie Lacy. People will remember a few years ago. He came back heavier and heavier and heavier. I believe he had the same problem in Carolina, didn't he, Benjamin? This is not the first time he's had issue making targets.
He's been overweight, and then just coming back and like to giving out about coaches, say coaches cursing at you and stuff. But I mean, you're a grown ass man paying in a multi-million-dollar league, get potential to get a contract for a couple of $100,000 for the year. You're gonna get shouted at. Get over it, man.
Yeah, it's one of those things when things are going good for you and it's someone else being cursed out. You're like, yeah, this is good. This is fire. We like this. We like the energy of the team, but when it's you on the other end and you know you're wrong and you're a little bit sheepish and there's nothing you can do about it, then yeah, I think, look, this is by no means the first coach that's ever cursed at him, surely to God. I know Ron Rivera was in Carolina when he was there. I don't know much of how Ron Rivera coaches, whether he's a cursor or a dynamic guy like the Colts quarterback from last season who never curses. Philip Rivers. Yeah, mind blank. Philip Rivers. He never curses. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit sensitive because he was a little bit overweight and the guys were teasing him in the locker room, probably maybe whipping him with towels and things. You know how it goes. So maybe he was a little overly sensitive that day.
Yeah, he's obviously been off league for a while. He obviously gained some weight, so he decided instead of staying a wide receiver, we'll convert to a tight end because obviously that's a lot easier to get at a higher weight. So maybe he thought he wouldn't have to lose so much weight. But.
This is another one, but I don't think was it 256 they asked him to hit.
He was let me see, I have it here. He was 265, and they asked him to go to 251.
251
14 pounds.
But 250
if you have a dietitian and all that shit, you'll find the weight somewhere. Like,
and it's not harsh. Like 250 is a plenty big tight end. It's not like they're asking him to be a teeny tiny tight end and just be running routes from a tight end position. But
if you ask me, it was another one of the Tim Tebow friendly signing. We know Dave Gettleman drafted him. Dave Gettleman now is the GM of the Giants, so maybe it was a bit like, here, Joe, let me get my old friend in here, get a little bit of money in, and then Joe is just not having any of it.
Well, like you said, it's 93-man roster for the mini camp, so you don't really lose anything by giving a go that you at least know you scouted. You have to still believe the talent is in there, but the Giants have had more than that issues at the moment. It is breaking news or almost breaking news that they ended this mini camp day, this session, with an all-out brawl in the middle of the pitch. And look, it's mini camp. Guys on the bubble, they get a bit feisty. They know they got to make plays. It's part and parcel of the game. Anyone who's seen Hard Knocks sees there's an argy-bargy here or there, especially inter-squad scrimmage can always get a bit feisty. What you never want is your admittedly not quite star, but quarterback to be at the bottom of that pile in the middle of the pitch. That is not the best place for Daniel Jones to be during minicamp.
I'll certainly agree with you. It's not where you want your quarterback to be. But having said that, maybe he wanted to be at the bottom of the pile. Like he's in the lads. Maybe he was getting protective over some of the other guys. You never know. I'm all for a bit of fire in camp, though. I'm all for it.
Well, we've seen quarterbacks get a bit argy-bargy before trying to prove they can play real big man football. So maybe that's what obviously I haven't seen any clips of it. I just wanted to bring up to tease you more than anything else. I don't know if you've seen any clips of it, but yeah, not brilliant.
Yeah, haven't seen any clips of the dog dive, all right, now, but I will be looking out for it.
Maybe he's diving at ankles, like the classic, the small man dive at the ankles, try and lumber chop him down to the ground. But look, not ideal for the Giants, but we'll move on. And someone else who's not had an ideal start to minicamp, and that is God's savior to football, Trevor Lawrence. He struggled and has been struggling. And he reminded everybody that despite the hype, despite the unanimous number one pick on everybody's big board, he is still a rookie. He is still right out of college, and he can still make mistakes. He's been struggling so far in the Jaguars minicamp.
Yeah, I think I seen a report where he completed one pass out of 11 on 11-11s or something. A lot of 11s were there, but he completed one pass. I think it's not like a telling thing. He's still probably going to be a great quarterback, but you still would like to see flashes of excellence here. This is why he has been anointed automatically. Maybe that's the bad thing. He was anointed too early as the best quarterback of all time since Andrew Luck. So maybe that's a bit of a problem he's having, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to take too much into it. It is camp. You do tend to practice some of your weaker aspects, if you will. And once you got to practice it. You got to throw out the stuff that you don't usually run just so you can get that into your head, get that body. We all know he's a talented guy. So, yeah, I'm all for it. Trying stuff like that and failing just at camp.
Yeah, it's an interesting time of the year, isn't it? I'm sure if you go on the Jaguars Twitter at the moment and have a read around of what opinions are flying about, there'll be guys slating him. There'll be guys hyping him up. The team will, of course, say, no, he's doing excellent. He's learning the playbook. It was just the drill. He was supposed to throw interceptions in that drill. That's what we wanted him to do. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So, yeah, like you, I wouldn't read into it. I think the main reason we're bringing it up is just to remind people, like, this guy's human, okay? He might not come out and bring the Jaguars all the way to the Super Bowl this season. It might take him a year or two to get the NFL under his belt.
We are in the off season. That is the season of all hype all the time. Like everybody is hyping up every little aspect of it. So he throws the interception, incompletion, whatever. It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and it's worth
Go on.
It's worth remembering as well that for every Herbert and Luck that comes out and lights it up in their first year, there's a Ryan Leaf who disappears and never does anything. Number one pick is fantastic. And in this day and age with the collective bargaining agreement, it gets you a lot of money, but it doesn't guarantee any amount of success in the NFL.
Yeah. And do you know who, by all accounts, is doing great in camp for the Jaguars? Travis Etienne seems to be doing a lot of good things on the team, catching a lot of passes and stuff. Rave reviews about him. I
think they'll be happy with that. Anytime you can get a running back who can catch the ball out of the backfield in today's NFL, it's almost a must. We're seeing more and more of those, especially those big heavies, those rumblers who are literally 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They're really being left behind. You need to be dynamic these days, whether that is cutting outside, even if we don't have the speed, just being able to bounce or catch a ball or just make the defense try and think about two things when you're on the pitch. So, yeah, that's good to hear. I liked him in college. Of course, running backs tend to get blown out of proportion in college. Jonathan Taylor obviously was dominant in college, had a great end to last season, but didn't start the season particularly hot. So we'll have a look and see where he progresses. Certainly, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be very happy if he's catching passes out of the backfield. I can see him being a huge safety blanket for him.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, having that familiarity with your own quarterback from obviously college going into the pros is going to be a huge bonus for both of them. It's that safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence. And then Travis Etienne will know he'll be able to have the ball a good few times on them checkdowns and everything. He'll be looked at a lot of times, I'm sure.
So that's the end of the really tangible news for this week. But we have one last segment. We have a little bit of time left, and we have one last segment we wanted to touch on. And that is whispers or rumors that we might have the Austin Bills next season. The Buffalo Bills are getting a bit grumpy with their stadium. They want a new stadium. They, of course, have billionaire owners, but typically that money seems to be tied up in other ventures at the moment. And they've asked the NFL to make the taxpayer pay for this brand new stadium / upgrades, and have threatened that if they don't receive this ransom money, that they will move to Austin, Texas, which, of course, I heard Pat McAfee again talk about every team wanted to move to LA for the last 10 years. Now 2 teams are in LA. Now apparently everyone wants to move to Austin. That's where all the tech guys from LA have gone, and it looks like that's where the teams want to go now too.
Yeah, I just can't imagine saying the Austin Bills. Who will be the sole New York team then if the Austin Bills are a thing? It's just such a big move as well. Can you never imagine another Texas team? It's just crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
as it is all speculation at this point, he is just trying to force the Bills or the Buffalo to buy a new stadium for upgrade that stadium, whatever he wants. But I mean, either they won't move or they'll end up paying for a new stadium because a team that's as upcoming as the Buffalo Bills are, like they're close to Super Bowl contention as almost any other team. So you don't want to be losing that out of your city if you have the chance.
I was about to say, and they have got a great chance, obviously, of being in the Super Bowl over the next maybe 10-year span, especially with Allen at quarterback. And it's worth remembering, it's a little bit weird for us over here to hear about taxpayers having to pay for stadiums. We're used to the owners having to pay for all that stuff. But it does bring a lot, and the NFL has shown in recent years that if you have a brand new stadium, you're extremely likely to get fitted onto that Super Bowl roster of venues for the Super Bowl, and that can nearly pay off the stadium in 1 year if you get that. So I think the team itself is worth it. The stadium they have is quite basic by today's standards. If they do upgrade the stadium, and obviously I hope they do, or get a brand new one, I hope they leave it open. I think that's a huge advantage to those northern-based teams that have got to play in the cold, something the Vikings don't have, but the likes of the Patriots and the Packers do. When you get to that cutting edge of the season, you got to go and you can barely feel your fingers as an opposition quarterback trying to throw the ball. Okay, you expect a top quarterback to be able to do it, but it just adds that extra little mental wrinkle into the match. I really like that. I think they should keep it open as much as they can.
Yeah, it's kind of one of them competitive advantages that's not often talked about, is this kind of weather dependent. Now, a lot of people might give out about that sort of stuff, but it's kind of part of the game, I think, as well. I completely agree with you. If you come December, January, you're vying for a playoff spot and you're used to playing in the cold, and then a quarterback comes in from like the east side. Yeah, east side. And he's just playing in the warmth. It's going to be harder. Like, it's absolutely going to be harder. And I just think that kind of adds a little bit more fun to it. And it's a bit of an extra kind of thing to watch out for sometimes.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like you said, the Austin Bills is a terrible name. If they do move to Austin, they'll have to change the nickname for sure.
Who's going to jump on tables then? I mean, like,
this is it.
Like that as much as Buffalo, like.
Knowing how crazy Bills Mafia are, they'd probably still commute every single Sunday down to Austin just to jump on tables. They don't even have to watch the match. In fact, that might be a better way. Don't put seats in the new stadium. Just put tables. They'll jump off the balconies.
Yeah. They're going to break if they jump on the tables, though.
Fold them in half and just sit there and watch the game. Throw some beers down from the top deck. See who catches them and let them go from there. Anyway, we have made it to the end, Jake. Thank God we managed to fill about 30 minutes of a show. Daragh will be very proud. I don't know if he's going to make another guest appearance before we leave tonight. I have a feeling he's on his way.
No, it's not happening for me.
It's not happening. Okay, we'll move on. We'll cut that bit out. Don't worry. It's a live show, but we'll cut it out. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, guys. Again, like we said at the top, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and do subscribe as well to the channel. It really helps us out. We reached 1,000 followers recently on Twitter. We'd love to bring that up to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Really get the message out. If you are liking the show and all this content, you can, of course, get the audio version of this show and all our previous shows on all good podcasting streaming platforms. You can follow us on Facebook. We are Under Center Pod, Twitter at Under Center Pod, and Instagram at Under Center Pod. You can also find us on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Under Center Pod. Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure. We will, of course, be back again later on in the week with our special guest, Jeff Rainbow. We are looking forward to that a lot. Hopefully, like I said, we'll have Daragh along with us as well. It's a huge guest for us. We're all big fans of his. So we're looking forward to having just a few moments of his time to get to talk about everything that's in his brain, American football. But until then, Jake, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Fionn.